Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, May 22nd, 2014. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, homebrewer Andrew Parr shares his experiment making maple wine. Andrew has fermented grade A maple syrup with 6 different yeasts to produce some tasty results. If you're new to homebrewing and would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. You can find me on Twitter. I am Basic Brewing, all one word. Also, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/basicbrewing.james. Our show page on Facebook is at facebook.com/basicbrewing. Thanks again to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon, think of us first. Go to our website, click on our Amazon ad. That will take you to Amazon, where you can shop, not paying any extra, and you'll be helping us to bring you this show when you do. We greatly appreciate your support. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site as well. Our Basic Brewing iPhone app is on iTunes, and our Android app is on Amazon.com. We're on the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, Google+, the Stitcher app, Windows, everywhere. You can check out our brewer's logbook at basicbrewingshop.com, and the front is a blank calendar that you can use to track your fermentations and plan your brews, and there is room in the back to log the details of up to 50 batches of brew. If you want to put a tip in our tip jar, some coinage in our guitar case, you can go to basicbrewing.com/support. Thanks to everybody who's done so already. Protect your precious beer with one of our growler bags. Check those out at basicbrewingshop.com. And the Basic Brewing bottle openers, they are in stock and heading out the door again. For a limited time, you can get a free opener with the purchase of any of our DVD combos. We have a sponsor this week. You know that Basic Brewing Radio is one great way to stay in touch with all things home brewing. Another great way to learn more about brewing better beer? Joining the American Homebrewers Association. More than 43,000 members rely on the AHA for great benefits like events, web resources, Zymergy magazine, and money-saving AHA member deals. As a not-for-profit organization, the AHA relies on members to support their work to promote, protect, and grow the homebrewing hobby. Whether you're an expert homebrewer or just getting started, visit homebrewersassociation.org to join today. Just like all of us that you hear as members of the Basic Brewing Group. We're going to see a lot more members of the AHA in just a few weeks up in Grand Rapids, Michigan for the National Homebrewers Conference. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I anticipate we'll learn a lot, too. I'm putting the finishing touches on my presentation on brewing small batches. It's a bit of a walk down memory lane. I've put together some details on some small batch experiments that we've done over the years to sort of give some reason and inspiration for those who are interested in small batch brewing. And that presentation will happen Saturday afternoon. This past weekend, as planned, I went over to Siloam Springs, Arkansas to meet up with our friend Casey Letillier, one of the original Blind Mice brewers from an early show, and also members of Boss, the brewers of Siloam Springs. I was there when the club sampled imperial stouts that they had each brewed, and they used those imperial stouts to fill a whiskey barrel. It was a lot of fun, and you'll hear that next week. And after that, we will be taking the month of June off from posting our audio and video episodes, but we do that every year. But we will be hard at work getting new content for you and having some downtime with our families as well. But that's then. But now we're going to talk to Andrew Parr. Andrew wrote me a while back saying that he was wanting to play with the maple syrup, the real stuff, not the corn syrup stuff, the stuff you get from trees. Andrew proposed an experiment where he fermented the maple syrup as you would honey in a mead, and he used 6 different yeast strains to see what the effect of each would be. Andrew Parr, welcome to Basic Brewing Radio.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You've done something that is becoming more and more difficult to do. You have exposed us to a new thing. At least it's new for us. And that is, you, in the email, you referred to it as an Acer Glen, but now you're saying it's not exactly that?
Yeah, I threw that line in the email saying that a maple mead is an acerglyn. I probably, in my haste to get to other things, probably didn't explain that an acerglyn, like I said, was a mead with maple added to it, much like you'd have a metheglyn or a sizer, a specific thing is mead with something else added.
Sure.
So yeah, this is not really an acerglyn. So I didn't want to get ridiculed by the folks over here, and wanted to try to save some of your reputation too by making sure we're not spreading false information.
Well, that's one of the things that we have to correct later on in the tasting session. But so essentially, there's no honey in this at all. It is just 100% maple syrup and water and yeast with some yeast nutrient.
Yep, that's all it was. Just the mead with maple syrup instead of honey.
What was the inspiration for all this?
It was actually your interview that you had with, no, I can't remember, with Ken Schramm. You had, it may have been mentioned in passing, but you guys had briefly talked about using maple syrup, I believe, as an additive or an adjunct to with mead. So having some extra time coming up and a leftover Trader Joe's gift card, I decided that I could try some of that, I guess, or start trying to figure out what works.
And so did you do any research on the web as far as a precedent of this kind of thing?
I did look. A lot of the forums were, hey, has anybody done this? Or I tried this once. There was recipes out there, but a lot of them were 5-gallon batches. And in my small house here, I don't have room to set up much more than a 5-gallon batch. So I decided to buy extra yeast and just try a bunch of different ones.
And maple syrup is not cheap, the good stuff, the real stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't too ridiculous. I mean, honey can get expensive too. But it didn't strike me as too expensive for trying something out.
So what grade of maple syrup did you start with?
This was it says 100% pure Vermont grade A dark amber, which I think is like the third on the scale. I think there's like a light, just an amber, then a dark amber, and then there's grade B.
Right.
And apparently the maple character gets stronger the farther down you go. So I don't know if I should have tried it with a grade B or not. The price difference was maybe like 50 cents or maybe $1 between buying the grade B and the grade A dark amber.
Well, on the brew day that we brewed, that Andy Sparks and I brewed with Casey and Jen, where they used maple sap as their brewing liquid, Andy and I discovered that you can make a really tasty hot scotchy-like drink with grade B maple syrup and a little bit of cheap cheap scotch, warming up the grade B maple syrup in the microwave for just a little bit. So that's just a tip, just another useful tip from the Basic Brewing Podcast.
Yeah. Well, if I find myself with a maple tree, I'll see what I can do.
We also discovered that maple sap is really low in sugar. I was expecting it to be, syrupy, but it wasn't. So I can't remember what the specific gravity was, but it was like 1.009 or something ridiculously low in sugar, and it looked like water, and it didn't taste very sweet. So you got to boil the stuff down for a long time to get to the syrupy consistency that we're used to thinking about.
Right.
And during that time, the maple syrup gains all kinds of tasty caramelized flavors, and so to try to make an alcoholic beverage out of that seems like a worthy task.
Yeah, I wasn't I wasn't exactly sure because I know there are tons of sugars that are not fermentable, or rather, exist sugars that are not fermentable, and I wasn't sure whether I how much of the maple syrup was going to be fermentable. I figured to some extent it would be because there are beers with maple in them,
Right.
and the acerglyn exists as a thing, so it's got to work on some level.
What was your recipe?
Well, I'd had to try to figure out, the best way to get it done, as far as how much to dilute it, or how much water to add. So I think I sent you the picture, the straight syrup with the hydrometer,
Yeah.
where the bulb is visible above the line of the liquid.
Yeah.
So,
You might as well have just set it on top. It's just as easy to measure the specific gravity of a table.
yeah, just about. I posted that photo to my homebrew club, and since the photo was cropped off of the top of the hydrometer, someone said, take your hand off the hydrometer. But
so it was impossible with a standard hydrometer to get, and I would imagine it would be impossible to use a standard refractometer to get a gravity reading. It'd probably be off that scale too.
Yeah, you're getting fancy there. I recently bought a refractometer, but I haven't brewed since I bought it. So I'd went to a 1-to-1 mixture, and that was still not on scale with the hydrometer. It was just at the bottom of the paper.
So you diluted it 1-to-1 with water,
right?
And it was still too dense to measure.
It was still too dense. So I went up 2-to-1, and that gave me a reading of about 1132.
Wow. So somebody with math skills could figure out, could interpolate from that.
Yeah.
What was so? Is that the starting gravity that you started with?
Yeah, that was the starting gravity. It was 1132. Diluting it at 2-to-1.
Right.
And then I'd just kind of guessed. Well, I pre-measured and taped the bottles to where I wanted to fill, right around 48 ounces. I got a bunch of the half-gallon jugs to do this in, because I didn't want as much headspace as a 1-gallon carboy would give me.
Right.
I did that, shook it up a bunch, and then using a digital kitchen scale, I measured out, what did I measure out? 0.05 ounces of yeast, and pitched that much of each of the samples into its own jar, and set it and forget it. Hopefully it doesn't get you in trouble with Mr. Papil.
And you also, in addition to the yeast in each of these, you also did a yeast nutrient as well, right?
Yes, I did add some yeast nutrient. Where was it? To start with, I did a quarter teaspoon of nutrient into each, and then later on, was, I don't know, day and a bit later, I added a little more. I think it says 1/16 of a teaspoon of nutrient, and I think that was actually the last addition that I did. But during the process, I degassed the samples pretty frequently to start with, just to help the yeast along.
Just by swirling around the bottles.
Yep, shaking the jars. Well, swirling, yeah, not shaking. That would be a little bit rough.
So what are you use 6 different, you split this batch into 6 different yeast strains. And what did you use?
I used Alalvin 71B 1122. I used a Red Star Pasteur Champagne, Red Star Cote de Blanc, the Saf Brew T58, Safal USO5, and then Safale SO4.
So, what did you see any visible differences in the fermentation?
Some of them were quicker to start than others were. The USO5 was the slow starter. Everything else was up and going pretty fast, easily within a day.
And how long did it take to finish fermentation?
To finish, it looks like it was right about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks before the airlocks would stop visibly bubbling and nothing would really come up when I swirled it around to degas them.
And then how long did you let it sit after that?
I let it sit for another month. So it looks like I'd stopped shaking them, stopped degassing them on the February 24th, and then I didn't bottle until March 24th. And then it was, I don't know, another month or month and a half until I'd send them off to you.
And I enlisted Steve to help me taste the samples that you sent, and we'll play that clip in just a minute. But as you would expect, the 6 different yeast strains performed in different ways. How did they do as far as fermentation, as far as attenuation?
Attenuation. A lot of the wine yeasts did pretty good. The 71B, it finished at 0.990. The champagne yeast finished at 0.988. Then the Cote de Blanc was a 1006. The T58 finished at 1.0. The USO5 finished at 1008, and then the SO4 finished at was the sweetest one. It finished at 1024.
So looking at the alcohol levels, the 71B, the Lalvin 18.6%, the Red Star Champagne or Pasteur Champagne 18.9. That was the highest alcohol. The Red Star Cote de Blanc was 16.5. The Safal the Saf Brew T58 was 17.3. The Safal USO5 16.3, and then the SO4 was the lowest ABV at 14.2%.
Yeah, it always sounds weird when you say lowest at 14.2.
Yeah. So are there any other notes on the procedure that we should talk about before we go into the tasting? I
don't know. The only other thing that might be relevant is that the ambient temperature, at least, because they sat on a shelf off to the side of my kitchen. The ambient air temperature ranged between 62 and 69 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's, I guess you would say, pretty close, or maybe just below room temperature for the whole process.
So again, the starting gravity on these was 1.132.
Yes.
Now, Steve and I got together, and talk about the little. We mentioned the bottles that you used. Where'd you find these bottles?
So these bottles, like you find all things on Amazon, is where I went to look for it. Because the sample sizes were so small, like I said, about 48 ounces. I didn't want to just bottle into 12-ounce bottles because I wanted try to get it around to various people to, if they were brave enough to try. And using the 12-ounce bottles, I would have only had 3 samples because you'd have the trub left over at the end, and you don't really want to serve that.
Right.
So I had found a bunch of glass bottles, 8-ounce glass bottles, with threaded green caps, and I used those just because like I said, I wanted to get extra samples out of the experiment.
And I could post a picture that I took of the samples on my countertop. But a couple of corrections. Steve and I, again, we called it Acer Glen, although it's not really an Acer Glen. I'm not sure what we would call it. A maple wine.
That's probably the most accurate. You can call Mead's honey wine, and I think TTB has them calling it that as well. Mm-hmm. So I guess to be completely accurate and transparent, a maple syrup wine would probably be the best descriptor to use.
So there's one correction, and then secondly, there was a problem with the document that I was reading from when it printed out. So I called the Lalvin 71B 1122. The Cote de Blanc from the Red Star came down under that name on the printout. So the A sample is just 71B-1122, and then sample C is the Red Star Cote de Blanc. So keep that in mind when you're listening to the tasting. We can blame the printer. So
yeah, you can blame me too. That's fine.
There's enough blame to go around. So this past week, when Steve and I recorded the latest episode of Basic Brewing video, or at least the latest at this recording, we got together and I buttonholed Steve to help me taste these 6 samples. Steve Wilkes, welcome to Studio, what is this, B, A, what is this? This is a kitchen.
This is Studio B.
Okay.
Studio A is upstairs.
Okay. I lose track.
Yeah. 2 studios worldwide.
Right now, how happy are you to be my friend?
I'm very happy to be your friend. and consultant.
Yeah, what other friend can invite you to try something that is delicious, that you've never tried before, and is a rare treat? What did I say? It's an Acer Glen?
Yeah, which I've never heard of that before. So tell me what it is.
Well, it is, and we'll describe this at the beginning of the show. This is the whole of the donut, but it's maple syrup and water and yeast and some yeast nutrient.
It's a very simple drink. It can be quite delicious. The experiment, of course, is multiple yeasts, and so we're going to talk about our impressions.
Right. We won't use that joke again.
No. Can't recycle material.
Okay. Now, we have 6 samples.
Okay.
How should we do this? Shall we just go through we'll talk about with Andrew. We will talk about the details of the numbers and how the yeasts performed. But this is the sensory experience here.
I am the chair. It's that good, folks.
Yeah. Well, in the age of Google, I was going to give away a prize for the first person to email me what I am the chair came from, but in the age of Google, you could Google "I am the chair" and it'd come up with the Blue Boy episode of Dragnet. So
that's right.
We're not out in the park burying our head yet, but there's more samples to come.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with A, which is the Lalvin 71B-1122 Cote de Blanc.
It's too hot. It's very alcoholic. It's very dry. I do want to say that all of these are very cleanly brewed or vented. I'm not sure what the term is, but they're really well made samples. So,
yeah, there's no nastiness. There's no contamination or infection that we could that we can determine that we can determine. And we haven't even had half of the sample bottles. But these, by the way, are these medical bottles? What came in these bottles? I wonder.
I don't want to know.
I'm almost afraid.
Yeah.
What sort of thing? What sort of a thing? Usually, you would take these are kind of bottles that you would take the substance out with a syringe.
I don't know.
Maybe I'll post a picture to the Facebook page.
Definitely.
But, okay, so it's going to be really hard for us to keep on track at this point.
Yeah. Because the ABV of this is what?
Well, we'll talk about the numbers with.
Okay.
It's high.
I'm sorry.
It's high. It's the high. It's the second highest.
Yeah.
So, but your sensory impressions.
My sensory impression is that it's really alcoholic because I can't even talk, and I've barely touched this stuff.
And we are going to eat something, and we're going to sit for a long time before you get on the road again.
That's true. It's just very alcoholic. It's very hot. The alcohol is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. The maple flavor or whatever maple flavor would be left. And because it's so dry, I mean, it's just taken all that sugar out of it. So, it's like dry maple, and there's not much left after that.
Yeah, it's almost like a distilled beverage. It's just so hot with the high alcohol content that, I didn't want to take more sips. If you look at the levels of samples in my little cups here,
yeah,
you can kind of map what I liked, and that one was one of the highest still left.
Yeah, for sure.
So B is the Red Star Pasteur Champagne yeast.
This has a definite phenolic nose to me. I mean, I'm really smelling almost kind of a rubber bandy kind of like when mead isn't ready to drink yet kind of thing. And it's also very alcoholic and hot in that same way.
Yeah, I agree. The rubber bandy thing, when it was colder, wasn't as apparent, but now that it's warmed up a bit, it's very alcoholic. I guess we can say it is the highest of alcohol of the ones, and there's no pleasant maple flavor with it.
No, it'll light you up though.
That's for sure. If you're just making stuff to get you,
what's the
word?
Thunderbird.
Now let's move on to pleasanter things.
Yes, indeed.
C, Andrew has just labeled Red Star, and I'm not sure what that is because Red Star is a manufacturer of yeast, but just Red Star.
Yeah.
What do you say of the C?
I like C a lot, and in fact, we had kind of voted. We think that C is our favorite of the 6. It's just very well balanced. It's very drinkable. You get a nice, you're drinking an alcoholic product, but it's not just knocking you over with alcohol. And it still retains that kind of nice mapley flavor, but it's not too sweet. So it kind of does everything that you want it to do.
Yeah, and there is and my wife Susan came in and sampled these as well, and she kind of concurs with our findings. But the C, the Red Star sample, there is a fruitiness that is in addition to the maple character. So you get the alcohol, which is a nice balance to the sweetness of the maple syrup. But you get the alcohol, you get the maple character that you like. You get a bit of sweetness, and then there's this added little fruitiness.
Yeah, it's a little more complex, and I like it quite well.
Yeah. So D is the Saf Brew T58.
Okay.
We'll revisit shortly. Also very tasty.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Very nice.
It's got a nice sweet. The balance is really nice in it. It's got. I get some really nice kind of burnt sugar flavors out of this one that I haven't detected before. And of course, I should say that we tasted this before we went on air, and now they've had a chance to warm a little bit more, and so some of the flavors are changing a little bit as I test these things.
So some of the positive things are coming out, and maybe some more negative things too.
For sure.
That's the danger of warming up the samples, but also very good. It's in a close running. It's one of my favorites. So then the next is the Saf Ale USO5.
My old friend.
Our constant companion.
And that one's nice, but it's a little one-dimensional.
Right.
Which actually is exactly what you would think from USO5. It's supposed to be a neutral yeast. It's not supposed to affect anything. And sure enough, that's what I would say it's done here.
It ferments the sugars and gets out of the way.
Yep.
And that's what it's done here. It leaves, it's a good balance of the sweetness and the alcohol, but it's just kind of flat. It's just kind of one-dimensional. There's, as opposed to the Red Star and the T58, which seem to have some yeast character added to
for sure.
in a positive way.
Yeah.
Added to the blend.
And then our final sample is the USO4.
Or the SO4.
SO4,
Saf Ale
not USO4.
SO4. Because it's a London ale yeast.
Well, UKO4.
I okay, you okay. See, now here's where we differ.
Yep.
Go ahead and say what you say before I correct you.
It's very sweet, and I quite like it. I think of it as a cordial or a liqueur or like an ice wine kind of thing, a late harvest Riesling or late harvest Zinfandel, something like that. So I don't mind it that it's very sweet. Your turn.
It's a little too sweet for me. This would go good on pancakes.
Oh, yeah. Go very good on our ice cream.
Ooh. If we only had some ice cream.
If we only had some ice cream.
But I think it's delicious. I mean, the maple character really comes through. But for the same reason I wouldn't want to drink a glass of maple syrup.
Right.
Maple syrup is delicious. I wouldn't want to drink a whole... Well, I mean, you know, in the correct setting, if it's wintertime and there's a fire and it's a little
1 ounce jigger,
a little what do you want to call it? Not a shot glass, but something fancier than a shot glass.
Yeah,
and maybe yes, but it's unbalanced to me. It's too sweet.
I can't argue with I can't argue with your position, sir. But I like it. I think it's really pretty good. So there you go.
There you go. So wow, these are just what an incredible experience.
Yeah, I mean, this is something truly that I've never had before in my whole life, and I think it's really intriguing. It's very interesting. I might try this at some point, and
if you could get the good stuff.
Yeah, and it would be an expensive thing to do because maple syrup isn't cheap.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know if I might stumble on some that's a good buy at the co-op or something and give a gallon try to it. But dare I say it, I was almost wanting a little hops in one of these. I was like, I want a little bitterness. And I thought, well, you know, it's a mead made with hops is really nice. Mm-hmm. What if you were to hop maybe C with just a little bit of hop character in there?
What fruit would go with these? Blueberries, obviously.
Yeah, blueberry. I don't know. I haven't. My mind isn't going in that direction at the moment. But the hop thing is intriguing to me. Yeah, blueberries would be great with it. Bananas would be great with it. Interesting.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, James.
So you were nervous, Andrew. You were nervous about sending us these samples, but I thought they were wonderful.
Yeah, this is really the first time I've tried anything, I guess you would say, out of the box. And I've had a couple people try single samples of this, but nobody's else apart from me until you and Steve had gone through the whole flight.
And it wasn't much of a challenge at all. We poured very small samples.
Right.
You know, I still, in fact, out of the little bottles, I still have about half of each. And I recapped them and put them in the fridge. So I want to share those with somebody else again. But they were delicious. I mean, we picked on the A and the B, the Lalvin 71B, and then the Pasteur Champagne as being a bit hot.
Yeah, they really were.
But the others, I think our favorite was the Côte de Blanc, the Red Star Côte de Blanc, which was C. And then the only one that Steve and I really differed on was the SO4, which I thought was too sweet, but he thought it would be appropriate for certain settings, and he's probably right.
Yeah. But, yeah, I'm not too much of a wine drinker, so I don't have too much to really base flavor profiles on, since these did come out potency-wise similar to wines.
Yeah, or meads. I mean, it's very similar to meads, or at least it struck me that way. The only difference is that these were very mapley. And another thing is that even though the alcohol, we picked on the alcohol being too hot, it didn't seem to me like there were any fermentation flaws. It wasn't like it was there were any bad off flavors from stressed yeast or anything like that. At least in my opinion. So you did a good job there.
Yeah, I have the process down. I just wasn't sure about the final output. But yeah, as soon as when I saw there was nothing really floating around in there, and they all relatively came out at about the same I don't know what you want to say, same hue, same color. Mm-hmm. Little slight variation in a couple of them, but yeah, they all looked pretty clear. I don't know how much or what can exactly live in things that's 14% or more alcohol.
I don't think anything can live in there now.
Yeah.
The SO4 was a little darker, but that's just because there was more sugar left over in there.
Right.
But man, I thought it was a really fun experiment, and I don't see any reason why people wouldn't add this to their list of fermentables along with mead and everything else.
Yeah, you could definitely finish off a porter or a stout. Use this as your bottling sugar if you wanted to tweak something that way.
Right.
And that should probably preserve more the maple flavor, since not a whole bunch of it is going to gas off during the fermentation. Yeah,
that's interesting. You'd have to, of course, get some sort of a calculator to figure out how much fermentable sugar is in the particular maple syrup that you're using, and all that. That might take some experimentation. But heck, I'm thinking they have. I think they make maple syrup from trees around here in Northwest Arkansas. So that would be a fun little local drink to brew up. And again, you don't have to have a lot. Small batch of this would be just fine.
Yeah. It's not anything I'm going to just carry around and make over and over again. I don't think I'd really want to get into a 5-gallon batch of any one of these. Although I don't know, I might take the Côte de Blanc yeast and try a couple of different variations with some other fruits or other things in it.
Oh yeah, blueberries.
You could. I was actually thinking something a little tartar, maybe like a cherry.
Ooh, that'd be good too. I was just thinking of the typical breakfast pairing of
blueberries and pancakes or strawberries. Yeah.
Well, this was delicious. Any other rules of thumb or things to look out for somebody who wants to try this themselves?
I would say just make sure you get real maple syrup, not a high fructose corn syrup stuff. But no, just essentially treat it like honey. I heated it a little bit. I didn't bring it to a boil at all, just to make sure it would dissolve a little bit better. But I didn't bring it anywhere near a boil. And just like I said, treat it like honey.
Well, it worked. You did a good job, and I appreciate your sending the samples. It was an inspiration.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, James.
Thanks again to Andrew. Those were some very tasty samples. I still have the leftovers from that in the fridge, those little bottles, and that will make for another fun tasting session. And I will post a picture of the bottles that Andrew sent, along with a shot of his hydrometer floating way high in the undiluted syrup on our Facebook page and my Twitter feed as well. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. Please don't forget to tell us where you're from. You will now find our new bottle openers on our shop. Our Basic Brewing growler bags are also available. You can check out our support link. We can throw a couple of bucks into the tip jar by subscribing financially to our podcasts. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing, Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site, along with combo deals to save you a few bucks if you want to buy more than one DVD at a time. And for a limited time, you'll get a free bottle opener with any of our DVD combos. You can check out our shirts in the store, too. Along with our log books, keep track of up to 50 batches of beer. You can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com, and if there's an vendor in your area, you can order them online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We greatly appreciate the support there. Featured products this week that were purchased through the link are outdoor fake dummy security camera with blinking light and Oh Yuck! Jetted tube system cleaner. Thanks again, everybody. And remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We greatly appreciate your support. And don't forget, you can also join the American Homebrewers Association and subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine through the associate links on basicbrewing.com. That's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dutz. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. Talk to you next time, everybody. So long.